It's time for another Dirt Daily, and today I'm going to do a smoke show with my summer camp Jeep. But it's not because this Jeep has a supercharged 6.2 liter V8 under the hood. It's because this Jeep has a problem. But first, a recap. What is the summer camp Jeep, or as I call it, the ultimate summer camp Jeep? Well, every year for the past 20 years, I've been going on this trip called Ultimate Adventure, which is now called the Unreal Adventure. And over those years, I've built a lot of vehicles through Peterson's 4-Wheel and Off-Road magazine. And I eventually had a recipe that I thought would make for like the perfect, the ultimate adventure vehicle, or ultimate summer camp vehicle, because we kind of call Ultimate Adventure summer camp. So this is that vehicle. It's capable of running down the road, but also capable of running really extreme trails. And it also has enough space in it to haul all your camping gear, because that trip is driver only. You don't tow during the trip. You can tow to the start or home from the end, but the actual adventure, you're driving your vehicle and living out of your vehicle.
Here we have Freddie McWilliamson in the summer camp Jeep. The year was 2023 and he was piloting his Jeep over large rocks in the hills of West Virginia. Rumor has it that the summer camp Jeep does exceptionally well when lots of coal is present in the soil. See you next time on Worldwide Sports Channel.
This is basically a hot rod Flatfender. It's on a JK frame with a supercharged LSA engine, which is a 6.2 liter GM V8. It has a 4L80 behind that, and then it has a Magnum 205, which is a gear reduction box in front of a 205 transfer case. So it has gear multiplication for double low range. And then it has Spider Trax axles front and rear with high pinion diffs. The rear has an ARB air locker. The front has a full-time locker like a Detroit. Fox shocks, link suspension. We actually built this at Synergy Suspension, and it's super custom. Like, even the body is a custom aluminum Flatfender tub, and it's not really, I mean, it's based on a Flatfender, but that's about it. There's no real like Flatfender parts on it. The cowl has been made taller, the door is longer, the back section is longer, so you can store a 40-inch spare tire in the back and have a cooler or fridge freezer behind that. And then there's kind of like a storage basket that goes above the spare, but it's still kind of a hot rod. Like, there's no doors, there's no back. There's just this canvas top that was custom built to fit on it. And the idea is like you're living out in the wind and the rain and whatever hits you during Ultimate Adventure. However, and it's got a steering box on it. The front is a 3-link suspension with a track bar and a steering box, and the rear is a 4-link suspension with trailing arms. It has shocks, bypass shocks, and air bumps, and the front has coilover shocks and air bumps up front. So it's pretty hot rod. It's pretty highfalutin. My buddies call it my gold watch because I threw everything at it when I built this thing, and it's pretty good. Like, I really like it, and it's really fun to drive. However, there's one super annoying problem, and I'm hoping to fix that today. In the back here, here's that basket I was telling you about, which is actually like a receiver hitch basket that I made into a mounted basket to store camping gear. And then the spare tire slides under here, and then the fridge sits right here, or just a regular cooler. And right here in this corner is the fuel filler. And unfortunately, every time I put fuel in this thing, it dumps fuel all over the ground when it fills all the way to the top. Now, this doesn't have a JK fuel tank, which runs in front of the axle parallel to the frame rails. This has a Genrate tank. So it's an aluminum tank with a steel skid plate underneath it, and it's mounted behind the rear axle. And the reason you do that is so that you can put a 4-link suspension, like a triangulated 4-link in the rear, instead of a track bar suspension. And then, because if you had the stock tank, the upper triangulated 4-link would interfere with the fuel tank. But with the way we have it set it up, we needed to put a fuel tank in the back. And we put this Genrate tank in it, and it worked good for a while, but now for some reason it leaks every time I fill it up with fuel. So I want to try and smoke the tank. I want to see if I can figure out where the leak is coming from. This is what I'm talking about when I say smoke the tank. This is the Icon Diagnostic Smoke Machine. This is actually from Harbor Freight. In fact, Harbor Freight sent this to me. I asked them about it, and they were like, we're gonna send you one, let you try it out, tell us what you think. And the goal here is that this will make smoke that I will pump into the fuel tank, and hopefully the smoke will come out wherever it's leaking, and I can figure out what's leaking. I'm hoping it's just like a vent gasket, or maybe a hose clamp that's loose, or maybe the gasket for the fuel sending unit. I don't know what it is, but I gotta figure it out because A, the fuel that I put in this thing is premium, so it's expensive. B, fuel is expensive even if you're not buying premium. And C, it's not really safe. Like, this thing's dumping fuel out on the ground. It's kind of annoying, obnoxious, and dangerous. So today I'm gonna try and hook this thing up and pump some smoke into the machine. Now, what is this machine normally used for? Probably not fuel tanks, but more like intake manifolds, exhaust manifolds, maybe your evap system. And the way it works is that you hook compressed air up to the back of this, and then you hook this up to a 12-volt battery. Usually the battery is in the vehicle, but I just happen to have an Optima sitting here. And then this hose plugs into the back of it, and it has kind of this little cone shape on the bottom. Oh, and up here on the top is where there's like you open this up, and there's a dipstick down in there, and that is where you dump the fluid that makes the smoke. This is the Icon smoke fluid. It actually comes with 2 bottles of this, and you open this up, dump some down in there to make sure that it has smoke fluid. Screw that on tight. Then on the back here is where the air plugs in, and also the hose plugs in that's coming out to this cone. Then the kit also comes with a bunch of adapters. This is the type of adapter I'm going to use on the fuel tank. I'm going to press this rubber down into the fuel filler, and then I'm going to plug this into the hose, and it'll dump smoke out of the top there, or out of the bottom right there. But then in this case, there's a whole bunch of different cones and adapters, and even a thing that you can plug in and then pump it up, and it'll like seal tight. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this to try and figure out where the leak is. Hook that up, and then we'll push this button right here, and then you can adjust this for the size of the leak. We're going to crank this all the way up to the top, and then we just wait for some smoke to come out of this. I think you can probably see it. If I hold it in front of my t-shirt. Yeah, look at all that smoke coming out. So we are going to feed this into the fuel tank and then plug that into the back so that the smoke comes out the end. Take that, stuff it down in there, and then take our smoke machine, plug it in there. The kit also comes with this little flashlight, which has a few different lights settings. And then I pulled out on the side here, this is where the vent hose comes out. Aha. So this one is already smoking. I don't know if you can see it. I'm in here nice and close. But that is the one that is making smoke. So now I need to plug that off. In fact, I think I'll use this off of the air line. I'll just plug that in there, and that should seal that up. All right, so no smoke coming there. So now I'm gonna try and inspect the top of the tank and see if I can see smoke coming out anywhere else. All right, I'm gonna look deep inside there. I don't see any smoke coming out, but it's also kind of hard to tell. I can see, if I look at that vent right there that's close to us, that white plastic thing, I can tell from here that the gasket around it is cracked. So there's a good chance that that gasket has failed. And there's also another one of those on the other side. Now, if you also look deep inside there, at the end of this wire is a fuel sending unit, and that has a gasket around it, and there's a good chance that that is leaking. There's also a lot of like residue, like maybe the tank was wet and then dirt stuck to the fuel and then the dirt stuck to the tank. So I can't verify exactly where the smoke is going or coming out, but what I can verify is that there's a problem. So I think the next step is I'm going to drop the tank. I'm going to raise the Jeep up, I'm going to drop the tank out, disconnect all the hoses, and then I'll smoke it again when it's not in the vehicle. Then I can figure out exactly which gasket's leaking and where all my fuel is dumping out. I disconnected all the bolts for the gas tank. Let me show you how it attaches. You can see right there that bolt hole. There's a bolt that goes right there. And then there's a piece of angle that sits right down in here so that if you crash down on the skid plate, it will not break that tab off. You can also see the bolt hole on this side. And then when you go up inside underneath here, there's two bolt holes on this side. Right there's our two fuel filters. And then over there, there's two more bolt holes. Everything's filthy down here. I tried to pressure wash it, but apparently I didn't do a very good job before I got this tank ready to drop out. So, and I also disconnected the hose clamp to the filler right here. So now we'll have to kind of wrestle everything down and get it to a point where we can smoke the tank on the transmission stand underneath the Jeep. The part I'm most concerned about is the fuel filler hose, because it's the filler, and then there's a hose, and then there's a piece of metal tubing, and there's another hose. So I kind of need to work all of that down. I believe the tank is empty based on the fuel gauge, but I honestly don't recall. All right. Something is still not loose. Maybe I'll put a little pry bar in here and see if it'll pop out. Oh, there we go. Drop it down a little bit. There's our tank. Now it's all coming out. All right. Now we got to get all the hoses disconnected. But it feels like it's coming apart up inside here. I think when I built this, we remembered to put like a lot of extra slack on the vent hoses and all the sending unit hoses, which is good because if we did it right, it should be able to kind of drop down and we can gain access to everything without disconnecting everything. Oh, it really feels like it wants to. Yeah. Yeah. I love it when the plan comes together. Oh, we're hooked on the exhaust. No, there we go. There we go. All right, let's drop this down some more. Fuel sending unit. This tells me the fuel level, and there's a gasket underneath that. And that definitely looks like there's a bunch of sticky dirt around it. Now that could be anything. That could be old mud or grease, or it could be gas that has leaked out. Next, this rubber gasket around this vent contraption, which I believe these are just from like a Jeep TJ that Genray uses, that is all cracked. The one on this side, also all cracked. So both of those should probably be replaced. And then that could be where it's leaking around that. And then there's the whole sending unit in the middle. This is what has the fuel pumps down inside the tank. And there's the pressure line that goes out. And then there's a return. And then there's also a vent. And then the power to each fuel pump. And that all screws down in here. And that O-ring or gasket that goes around that could also be leaking. So, many options for where it could be leaking. Oh, and then there's also right here where the fuel hose fills into the tank. That could be leaking. So, a lot of holes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 places that should be sealed up. And if any of those are leaking, it could be dumping out premium fuel onto the ground. So I think what we'll do now is we'll come back up here to the inlet and we'll smoke it again, and we'll try and watch for all of these sections, see if smoke comes out of any of those. But I've also realized that there's not one, but 3 vents for this tank. One here, and then one that goes right there. Actually, I guess there's 6 holes because there's this vent here that's for when you fill it. And then there's this vent that goes to the fuel pump kit. So I need to block off all 3 of these hoses, or pinch them off with vice grips or something, so that when I smoke it, I know that it forces the smoke to not come out of those and hopefully permeate out of one of these other things that are worn out. But I also have the tank down, so it might be a good idea to replace like the gasket for the sending unit, these gaskets. It might just come down to replacing everything, because that thing's definitely cracked and garbage. So I'm going to smoke it again and see if we can figure out the exact spot, but I have a feeling everything's getting disconnected and cleaned and all these gaskets replaced. Stick that guy in there. Now I think we're probably pretty solid. Okay. Lights on. Hose runs up here to this cone. All of our vents have a bolt stuffed in them. I sprayed off all of the possible leak zones with some brake clean to kind of clean all the schmutz off. Now we wait. Those guys have to be leaking. How can they not be? I took a little bit of soapy water and I squirted it around all of this fuel sending unit and the vents. thinking like if there's smoke in there, I did all of these joints, that it would bubble up, and nothing seems to be bubbling up. Aha! Look at this. Look at all those bubbles. And also, right here, now we're getting bubbles. So, it seems like we need to disconnect all of these lines and figure out the gasket that's inside there and why is it not sealing up. That's a bummer. Oh, I just saw smoke. Ooh, these bubbles, when they pop, they have smoke in them. See if I can catch that on camera. Yeah, so when a big bubble pops, smoke comes out. But we're also getting smoke up here at the fuel gauge sending unit. So now we have two things to repair. Which is kind of amazing that these little guys that are all cracked and look like they're ready to fail are not the problem. And this down in here is the problem. All right, cool. Now we got to figure out how to fix that. There it is. Our Gen-Right tank is out. It's not really too hard to remove. I need to get this filler hose off and out of the way so that I can get to the fuel pump sending unit, which is tucked down inside there. This thing's been in this Jeep for about 15 years. No, 10 years, which I think is pretty good. I'm kind of bummed that it's leaking, but I mean, stuff leaks, especially after it's been used and abused off-road. I mean, I never abused this vehicle. This vehicle was always driven with precision and well wishes. All right, I'm gonna try and get this off, and then we're gonna clean this some more so that we can pull that out, and I might need to either look into another gasket for this fuel sending unit or a complete new fuel sending unit, because there's little gaskets on the top plate for where the wires go through, and I'm a little worried that maybe those might also be failing. I'm gonna just try and replace all these gaskets, even these two out here on the vents that are not leaking. If I can get them in the next couple of days, I think I will swap them in. I got that off. So this piece of hose that runs from the filler down to the tank, I used Bowflex Thermoid 1.25" hose. And this stuff has steel in it, and once that was clamped down, it did not want to come loose. And I literally had to pry and unwind the steel from inside the hose, which is kind of a bummer because now I got to buy a new piece of hose. But maybe there's some other type that holds up to fuel that doesn't have metal in it. If not, I'll just buy another piece of this. But that fought me, as it does. But now I have the filler hose and the vent off, and now I can gain access to the fuel sending unit itself right down in there. I plugged off the filler and some of the vents and I put Smokin here, and I sprayed it with some more soapy water, and it looks like the bubbles are coming from close to the fuel pump sending unit. So basically there's a ring right here that threads on, and then there's a plate, and then that plate has the fuel pumps that go through it. So I removed all the nuts that hold this on, and this should be ready to lift off, and hopefully we will see an O-ring with a hole in it or something that is an obvious reason why it's leaking. So I need to carefully lift this off. I should probably lift all of these little white washers off so they don't fall off and fall into the tank. And then we'll lift this off and try to find the problem. And hopefully we can actually find a problem and figure out a way to fix it. Oh, yes. Here comes our system. So, it looks down in there is a gasket, and that gasket doesn't look torn or anything. Actually looks pretty good, but maybe it's either just waterlogged. I don't know if I can, I feel like this should pop out of here, but everything seems to be getting hung up. I wonder if it has to be reassembled on the outside. Like if this ring has to break loose, which is kind of dumb because this ring doesn't have any sort of like notches in it or any way to like grab it. Ugh. I need like a giant oil filter wrench to go around this whole thing in order to grab it and try to break it loose. Let's see if we have anything like that. All right, I got an idea here. I took this piece of a ratchet strap, just the strap part, and I put this around the big ring. And now I'm going to grab this with some needle nose pliers and kind of spool this up so that it's nice and tight. Then I'm going to grab my ratchet, put it in here, and I'm hoping that this will, oh, look at that. It did it. Ha ha! That was cool. Wonder if we can do it again. Go a little bit further. I want to open all of this, get it all open, because when I pull the vent gaskets and the sending unit, there's a chance anything can fall down in there. And I kind of feel like if I just get it all open to start, maybe we won't have that much problem. Look at that. That's pretty awesome. I guess I'll have to just do the same thing in reverse to get this tightened back up on there. These outer two are -8, and they clamp down so tight that you can't undo them with the ring on or when it's bolted down. You have to like loosen up all of this to lift it up off to get the outer two hoses to disconnect. You almost have to like assemble it in various stages to get everything apart. But now, looks like I can lift everything up and out of here. Whoa, look at this fuel pump. I thought they were both working, but I might have a burn up fuel pump. That thing does not look good at all. It looks like it's got hot. I might need to replace one of my fuel pumps while I'm right here. Sweet. All right, all of this is out. Now we disassemble it and try to figure out what the leak is. And also, so there's a big O-ring right there. And that one doesn't look bad either. I wonder if I can get one of those from Genrite. I need to get that O-ring. I need to get these gaskets. I need to get whatever gasket it is for the sending unit. And then figure out about this big sort of squishy neoprene washer that's on the inside of there. I got a lot to find parts for. Where are we? The gas tank is out of the Jeep. I have the sending unit out. I had a leak in the gas tank, and I used the smoke machine that my friends at Harbor Freight sent, and I was able to find what I believe is the leak. So kudos to the smoke machine. The smoke machine, this is not inexpensive. $570 is what I just saw online from Harbor Freight. And you need to be able to hook it up to 150 PSI of air. It doesn't put out that much pressure. I'm not really sure what goes on inside of the magic smoke machine, but it needs pressure, it needs 12 volts, and then you plug this hose into whatever you're looking for the leak. Would I spend $570 to find out what I found out? I mean, I now know exactly what was leaking, so I guess that's good. At least I know one of the things that was leaking. But yes, the smoke machine works great. I'm sure if you are constantly looking for leaks in different vehicles, this would be a great investment. And there are different versions out there online. I got the one from Harbor Freight, and it seemed to do exactly what it was supposed to do. So, stoked on that. Fuel pumps. So, I figured out that the leak was coming from between this plate up here and this plate here. There's this black seal that goes in between those two. And I put this together 10 years ago, and I didn't really remember. And then I was looking online to replace that. That is like a neoprene seal, and when you assemble it, the thing is like 3/4 of an inch thick, and it squishes down. So now it is about 1/4 of an inch thick. And it does not expand back up after being squashed, bolted tight for 10 years. So I'm going to replace that, and that is what I know is where one of the leaks was coming, at least the leak that I found. So I probably could have just tightened down all those little nuts and washers and tightened that some more and maybe stop the leak. In fact, a friend of mine suggested that. He said, just tighten those things down and keep going. But I didn't. I took it apart because I wanted to see what it was because I didn't remember. And I ordered a new one of those seals. I also ordered all new fasteners. I ordered a whole bunch of stuff. Last night I got online, and $400 and some later, I had a whole bunch of parts coming. So I have a new seal there. I have all new hardware here. And I have a new fuel pump coming. I feel like I'm changing fuel pumps on everything these days. The Flatfender needs a fuel pump. The big diesel JK needs a fuel pump. Everything seems to need a fuel pump. The Mad Max's car outside needs a fuel pump. I don't know if it's just bad luck, the lack that I don't drive everything all the time, or it's the lousy gas, or what. So this Aeromotive fuel pump failed. I'm not upset with Aeromotive. I mean, it lasted 10 years. but it's kind of a bummer. I am pretty lucky because if you look at this like burn mark right there on the side of the pump, there's one on both sides. That was inside the tank with all of the fuel. So I feel pretty lucky that it didn't make a fire and burn the whole Jeep to the ground. I ordered another one of these fuel pumps. In fact, I ordered 2 because when you order one, it's good to have another spare. So that's gonna have to come off. I did test both of these. The other one is still working fine. This one is not working when it's given 12 volts. So that tells me that it's definitely kaput. Also, when you change out fuel pumps like this, make sure you put the right type of hose inside here. These little pieces of rubber are not just your basic fuel line. They are fuel line that can be submerged in fuel, and you want to make sure that you're using the right stuff. I think the new fuel pump comes with that line. If not, I'll reuse what's on here. So overall, the whole reason that this has dual pumps is because of just this reason. If you lose a fuel pump in the Jeep, I can just flip a switch and run off the other fuel pump. I don't know when this pump stopped working. I really can't remember how long ago it failed, but because I don't drive the Jeep nearly enough. Again, a problem. But I am going to replace it with a new one. I'm replacing that seal gasket thing up there, that squishy thing. What else am I going to replace? Oh, I have an order in with Genrite to get new gasket for the vents, the rollover vents up here, and for where all this screws down together. So I was looking for a leak. I found other problems. Hopefully I can fix everything and get it all buttoned up back together. I also ordered a new sending unit with a new gasket so that I can make sure that is trouble-free. Again, this stuff's 10 years old. It's been around the block a little bit. So I think if I can get it back together without a leak or without leaking in the future, I will be happy. I do need to replace some hoses, the fuel filler neck hose, and maybe some of these vent hoses. But overall, it's coming together. I am going to clean this all up, probably get all the fuel out of it, and try to get it all buttoned up and clean and prettied up so that when all the new parts show back up, I can slam it all back together and put it back in the Jeep. But overall, we're coming together. Parts fail sometimes. I'm happy it didn't leave me out on the trail, but that was kind of, like, I feel like I've done some smart things building this Jeep. I built it with long hoses so that you could drop the tank and you're not like fighting up in there to disconnect hoses. I built it with dual in-tank pumps so that if one failed, you had a backup. I like in-tank pumps more than external pumps because the fuel should keep the pump cool so it doesn't fail. This one failed. Stuff fails, especially after 10 years. Oh, and smoke machine. Pretty stoked on that. All right, let's clean this tank and hopefully we'll get some parts here in the next 24, 48 hours. Imagine being like a show car, like a guy that just builds a truck and goes to a car show. Never has to deal with this. Never has like caked on mud, grime, stuff that fails from getting smashed into rocks. That's weird. Things are going swimmingly on the Summer Camp Jeep fuel tank project, which was just a gas leak, and then it snowballed into redoing all of the entire fuel tank system. I pulled the tank out of the skid plate, and there's actually like pieces of foam, strip, weather stripping type stuff that goes in between the tank and the skid plate. And I pressure washed everything. I painted the skid plate inside and out. I put new foam in everything. I bolted it all back down in. I cleaned the exterior of the tank really well, or pretty well. I even went like where the tank sits into the skid plate. I kind of covered it with like some Gorilla Tape to try and like keep mud and dirt from falling down in there. There are places it can drain out at the bottom, but if I can keep it from going in there, a little bit better. I replaced the fuel filler hose. I found legit fuel filler hose at my local Napa Auto Parts store, 1.25 inches, and I also added right here and right here. This steel tube runs all the way to there, actually runs all the way to there. And then there's a little gap, and then it goes onto the filler on the tank. So I replaced the hose, put new hose clamps on, and I also put a weld bead around right here on the steel tube, and I put one right about there so that when this is clamped on, it's less likely to slide off and it'll seal. So there's multiple clamps, everything's pretty kosher. This is ready to go back on. I also put all new hoses on the vent lines, the two vent lines that go to the rollover valves, and also the vent line that goes onto the filler return vent. So all of this hose is fresh and new and ready to go on. I ordered the rollover valves and the gaskets from Genrite. They'll be here today or tomorrow. I was hoping that today, probably tomorrow, which is fine. They're not very far away, and I have other things to work on. I also ordered this big fat O-ring that goes between the sending unit and the kind of screw down clamp deal. So I'm not going to pull these out until the new ones are here, just so that I can take one out and put the other one in and kind of visualize everything. That's all the stuff that's going great. Now there's other stuff it's not that it's bad, it's just a little bit more of a speed bump than I was hoping. Let me show you. Let's talk about the fuel pump debacle, I will call it. It's not really a debacle. So if you remember, I had a leak. I found out that it was the gasket that goes on in between this part, the sending unit, and like the ring, this ring that goes onto the tank. And this is the old gasket, which you can see is now like a little over 1/8 of an inch thick. And this is what it used to look like, or should look like. This thing is like a 1/2 inch thick. So I ordered a new one, and it came in. It's all nice and squishy. And when I tighten that down, I'm hoping it will sit on there perfect and seal up nice, and I won't have that fuel leaking issue again. Now, you may recall when I pulled this out, I found that there was this fuel pump that had these two like burn marks on either side of it. And I was not too excited about that. But I also was like, you know what? It got hot, it overheated, it stopped working, but it didn't catch on fire inside the fuel tank. So that was good. And I got online and I was like, I'm just gonna order another pump. And then at the last minute I said, I'm gonna order 2. Because even though one of these is good, if I replace one, it's always good to have another one on the shelf or in a toolbox or wherever, have it along. And the pump got here, the new pump got here. In fact, I've already installed it. But there's an issue. The new pump's a little bit different. Basically, the issues that I'm running into is this system I installed 10 years ago. And in that 10 years, Aeromotive has changed things. And I'm not against companies changing their products. The hard part is that they don't even tell you, like in the description, that, hey, this doesn't work the same way. You got to like rewire stuff. And that's basically what happened. The old pump, the wiring harness, which is right here, that would plug right into this. Easy peasy. And then they replaced it with weather pack. And then the weather pack, they had like a little pigtail. And so they had a pigtail to plug into the weather pack, but this is all soldered to the connectors that run through this top hat. So like you can see on this side, it plugs into the pump and then it just loops around and it solders onto those right there. And then on the new replacement part, there's all this extra stuff because this doesn't plug into the pump, it plugs into this thing, which then goes into the pump. So it's a little bit more convoluted. And the hard part is that you look it up online, you look up the old pump number, and they don't even, there's no record of it. It's 10 years old, so I get it. But you would think that a company would just say, hey, if you had that, it's now superseded by this, and it's a different plug, so be forewarned, which isn't a big deal. It was kind of a pain because I had to like solder these connections down here, and then I put some heat shrink on it, so everything should be 100% good. It's just kind of annoying. But that's kind of the problem with like when you get something you start with something and then 10 years, you have to change parts, and there's stuff that doesn't just drop right back in. So luckily I called Aeromotive and they were super cool. They basically walked me through. They were like, oh, here's the thing that was, the guy that answered was like, oh, I've got that kit in my muscle car or whatever. And he was like, and when I told him, hey, the pump is different and it doesn't plug in, he was like, oh, and by the way, the pump caught on fire or melted. And he was like, oh. So they were cool. I sent him pictures of it. I think his name was Alex. So thanks, Alex at Aeromotive, for helping me out. Even though they didn't warranty it, which I don't really expect them to. It's 10 years old. And they didn't even say sorry. No, I guess he did say sorry, but I mean, at the end of the day, I just had to change everything over. So, which brings me up to another thing. Like I ordered the fuel pump and then I was like, why did I order that and not order fuel filters? So there's an inline filter in front of each pump going up to the engine, and I couldn't even find a part number on this. And then I found a part number on the filter on the inside, and I looked that filter number up. That is no longer useful, and now they have a new filter, which I ordered, and I'm hoping it shows up and it's the right thing, because I'm kind of going off of measurements and not necessarily any part numbers. But hey, Aeromotive, find all your old part numbers and tell us what the new part number is, so that when guys are changing out the fuel filters on their 10-year-old hot rod projects or summer camp Jeeps, they know exactly what to get. I think I got the right thing, cross my fingers. So I have new fuel filters. Those are coming tomorrow. I was kind of hoping to put it all together today, but I'm finding that it's probably not going to work that way. So the new fuel pump is installed already. I need to put the filter up here. Oh, I also got a new filter for this side, the little pre-filter dingus. So I will replace all the filters. I am keeping the old pump because it's working. You might say, you've got it all this way apart, why don't you change both of them? And the reason I don't want to change both of them is because I've already soldered this one, and it was kind of a pain. I'm not the bestest at soldering. I don't know why. Like soldering, you watch people solder online, and it's like, oh, that's easy. You just heat this side, and the solder goes across that side, and it goes together instantaneously, and it's beautiful and perfect. Like, I can weld. I'm not bad with a torch. I can even TIG weld. I'm not like trophy truck TIG welder, but I can TIG weld. I can make aluminum stick together and steel stick together. What is up with soldering? Why is it, and maybe it's the soldering iron and soldering gun that I've got. Maybe they're just junk. I don't know. So I need to practice soldering. Hey kids, if you're not good at something, get out there and practice, practice, practice. So I am going to assemble this some more, put the new filters on, try to get this new gasket dingus on. Oh, there's another thing. This plate down here, there's like two little tiny screws that go through this aluminum plate into this bottom bracket, which holds the studs that go up through, which then the gasket slides over. It's a cool system. It's just got a lot of moving parts. Well, the two little screws that hold this together, I'd never put them in. They're like countersunk screws, but everything was there for them. So today I did like the ultimate old guy adventure. I drove to town in my 3/4 ton truck with my two little dogs, the AC pumping, because my little dogs, I don't want them to overheat because they're getting old. And I bought 2 screws. So I probably spent more money on gas in the 6-liter Chevy 3/4 ton idling in the parking lot than I did on the 2 screws that it took to assemble this. All right, I'm gonna put this thing together, and hopefully I can clamp this down and we have no more leaks. And I probably won't install it in the tank just yet. I want to make sure that I get those old rollover valves and gaskets and all that stuff out. Oh, I can't replace it anyways because I don't have the new O-ring that goes on the filler. Oh, and I also got some a new fuel sending unit, like just for the fuel level. So I'll put that together. All right. That's my Fred talk. Thanks for attending. Let's get back to work. It's all coming together. I got the little gaskets for the rollover valves. I got the big O-ring for the fuel sending unit. I have the fresh new hose here. I think this goes on like this. I should double check. I took a whole bunch of photos. Oh, it actually goes this way. I took a whole bunch of photos when I took all this apart, and that way I can put it all back together the same way it was. So that sits right there, and this will run up to the, up by the filler neck. That's just the rollover vent. And now we can put the fuel sending unit in and start buttoning this thing back up. I really want to get it back in the Jeep and fill it up with some premium and see if we have any leaks. It shouldn't. I have new gaskets here. I have a brand new sending unit. The reason I did that was because there's little like rubber gaskets around the fixtures on those. And I just ordered a new one. And then I ordered it came with a new cork gasket. I put a little bit of this cork shellac gasket stuff on it. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. It says it's resist fuel, so that should be good. And I have new hoses, lots of new hoses and lots of new parts and that new squishy gasket on the fuel sending unit. So I think we are about ready to put this thing together. Let's put our fuel sending unit in here. And make sure everything's tight. That's tight, that's tight. This is on, those are tight. So I think we can drop this down in here with our new pump and our new O-ring. We have this like ring that screws down on here. I kind of need to get that started. All right, we're going to redo our trick we did before. Put this ratchet strap around that aluminum ring. I'm going to try and get it as tight as I can just by hand. But I want a lot of pressure on that because that's where it squeezes this aluminum plate down against the that green O-ring and seals up so we don't have any more leaks. So let's bring this strap around here. And here's some pliers. All right, here we go. If I stand here, oh yeah, look at that. Look at that thing getting tight. This is probably my favorite part, that I figured out this cool little trick. Just tighten this bad boy up. Grab this thing again. Oh, yeah. That might be it. That might be as far as it wants to go. Hopefully that is all she needs. We don't want premium running out on the parking lot anymore. Okay, the return. All of these old connections are still tight. So now I come in and I tighten up the screws that squish the gasket, that neoprene gasket, the one that failed on us before. It didn't really fail, but I think that's where the leak was. So I guess it did fail. It didn't like look torn, but now we put the vent line and the fuel filler, and I think we're about ready to put it back under the Jeep. I think we're set. Let's put this thing back in the Jeep. How does it look? Rollover vent, filler neck, the wires for the fuel pumps, the fuel level gauge sending unit. Everything is coming together. I think it's time to jack up the transmission jack and feed it up in there, hook up the last few hoses to the fuel filters. I rebuilt the fuel filters with new elements, hook up the return line, make sure all the vents are tucked up, and bolt this thing into place. Okay, what do we want to do? I want to jack this up and then kind of feed this up into the crack and also hook up the 2 feed lines and the return vent. So kind of want to do a little bit of everything at the same time. I need to remember to not leave my magnetic light attached to the bottom of the Jeep after I lift this up into place. All right, I have to raise it up a little. I mean, it's a puzzle. It's like every puzzle on every vehicle. You kind of got to start getting things lined up, try to get it square, get the hoses to be where they're routed and not pinched. Have all your vent lines where you can tuck them up. Make sure nothing's laying on the exhaust pipe, which lives right beside the fuel tank. And slowly kind of work stuff up into its home. Now, I'm going to turn the key and we're going to see if we can make both fuel pumps run. I can hear one. All right, I heard one fuel pump run for a second, and usually it like runs for a second and then it shuts off, so it builds up pressure. But I didn't hear the other one do that, but there's no fuel in it, but it might have thought it built up pressure. So, or I might have a relay that's dead or a fuse that's dead running to that second fuel pump, which is kind of annoying, but it's probably underneath the passenger seat. So, I'm going to go get fuel, dump 4 or 5 gallons in this thing so that there's fuel in it, and then I can actually crank it over and see if it will start and run on both fuel pumps. If it's not running on both fuel pumps, then I think we have a problem in the electrical up here, either a fuse or a relay that powers that second fuel pump. Honestly, it wouldn't really surprise me if there's an electrical glitch on that other fuel pump. Like maybe when that pump locked up, it blew a fuse or the relay. So I should probably be inspecting that anyways. But I'm gonna go get gas, then we'll come back and we can inspect wiring while we can see if it'll actually run on both pumps. If it doesn't run on both pumps, then, or there's one pump not running, then we will track down which one is not running and look at the fuse or relay that feed that one. So no matter which pump I'm running, I'm getting fuel pressure. I'm getting 65 PSI, which is what this thing wants. A little bit, maybe a little bit more than 65. So that's good. That means we have 2 working fuel pumps. It's got about 9 gallons of premium in it, and I'm stoked. We have this thing fixed. We got a leak. Look, now we got a leak from this hose that's running into the fuel filter, but it's almost like the hose has too much of a kink in it. So we might need to switch some lines around. If we bring that hose over to this side, maybe it won't have as sharp a bend in it. One of the hoses was kind of kinked and it was leaking at the fitting, and I swapped from side to side so the kind of curve of the hose was smoother, and then I fixed it. Basically, I fixed it. I moved some stuff around and I tightened things up, and I used both switches. I used the switch to be on either fuel pump, and man, the whole shop smells like exhaust and gasoline. And I really need to open the big doors up before I fall over. Basically, it's not leaking now. And it's back in, and it's running on both pumps. And both pumps are making 65 PSI, which is I think what they're supposed to be at. So we're like 95, maybe even 98% of the way there. The only thing that's left is to take this to the gas station and fill it up and see if it dumps fuel all out over the ground again. Which, if it does, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to tighten up because everything's tight. But I don't think it will. I think it's going to be perfect. But I'm not going to do that tonight because I'm tired, probably because I've been in the shop with the exhaust running and the gas spilling everywhere. And I feel like we're at a pretty good spot to call it a night. Yeah. That's it. I dumped fuel in. The fuel didn't dump all over the ground, but I only put 9 gallons in, and I think this thing holds 17 or something. I don't even remember what it holds. So that's it. I'm going to come back tomorrow, take it off the lift, drive it to town, fill it up all the way to the top, and cross our fingers that it doesn't dump out or spill out or leak out anywhere. And I think we are good on the fuel tank situation. Knock on wood. We'll see you in the morning when we take this thing to town for some fuel. If I put 9 gallons in it, I should probably take 7 or 8 gallons. 7.5. All right, that's got to be full. 9.5 gallons. Got a little drip, but I think it's from the overflow hose. So I don't think that's bad. I think we're good. It used to be gushing out. I think we fixed it. I put another 9.5 gallons in. I put about 9.5 gallons in before, and I added another 9.5 gallons, and it doesn't seem to be dripping. We can take it for a little rip through town. Try not to get pulled over by the federales, because I don't have a hood on the Jeep. Tires are sticking out. But it is a holiday weekend. Maybe they'll just think I'm going to the car show or something. This thing's running great. It was like doing some weird limp mode stuff when I first got it running. And I was a little worried about it. But it seems to be running smooth now. Nothing like driving your rock crawler to town. Look at that! Dave would love that thing. Turbo Sprint. Dorks. Sorry. I shouldn't be offended by people that like electric cars. Alright, I'm stoked. Drove the Jeep to town. Jeep ran great. Filled it up with fuel, topped it off. Fuel gauge read completely full. No fuel dumping out. Little bit of a drip out of the vent, but that's where I want it to drip out, not out from the sending unit or out from the fuel gauge. So everything is fixed. Fuel pump seemed to be running fine. Jeep's running great. I'm stoked. It's always like, it's so frustrating when you have a leak and you can't figure out where it's coming from. Smoke machine helped me find the leak, and then in finding the leak and trying to fix it, I found a whole bunch of other problems, but I think I whipped all of those. Spent a bunch of money buying new parts, but that's how it is sometimes. This thing's 10 years old. I can't believe this thing's 10 years old, but that's what happens. You get an old trail rig, you're gonna have problems eventually. Stuff's gonna kind of wear in, wear out. So that's it for this Dirt Daily. We'll see you guys next time. I am back in love with this hot rod Jeep. Let's go wheeling. There it is. That's the pile of stuff that I replaced. Fuel filters, pickup filters, fuel pump, fuel sending unit, O-rings. Yeah. All that stuff snowballed from why is my gas tank leaking to look at all these parts that are failing to I should upgrade other parts.